I went through the classic kind of everything is black. There's a point of light in the distance. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter. I feel like I'm dying. I cross over some kind of a threshold and I enter into a different state of being. You know, very much like near-death experiences in the tunnel of light. And I come back from that into my body, and there is lightning-like energy moving up and down my spine. And my whole consciousness had changed after that. Hi, I'm Jack Morrigan, and this is Your Superior Self.
Jack, my man, you're so laid back. I know it's very early where you're at, and thank you for taking the time.
No, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, how are you experiencing your existence right now?
That is a fascinating question. So whenever I step into a conversation like this, another part of myself comes in. And even though it's early in the morning here, it's 2 a.m. here, I can actually feel my spirit very strongly. So I feel a sense of inner focus, clarity, like something profound is taking over my personality, and that really it wants to express itself, and that it is actually me, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
it doesn't make sense to me because I haven't had your experience, but to you, it sounds like you know exactly what you're talking about. And I listened to a lot of your previous content, and I'm just so fascinated with how you came to experience this part of self that is so elusive for me. Like when you did that practice of finding the awareness in each of the hands, right? The
Mm.
left hand and the right hand, I caught a glimpse of that.
Yeah.
However, I'm assuming that your waking state or your everyday reality is similar to knowing that or feeling that awareness. Is that right?
It kind of like it like has layers to it. So there are times where I'm more in my human self and just enjoying being in my human self, um, like engaging more in that social level of interaction. Um, but there will be moments within that where different levels of consciousness open. So I become aware of myself as spirit. So I am that which is aware of this experience. But also it can expand into the cosmos, and into the deities of the cosmos,
Ooh.
where my consciousness expands into these vast places, and I become aware of them. And initially that can feel like it's something outside of me. But then more and more as time moves on, it's like I'm looking into a mirror with everything that I experience. Um, so no matter what I experience, it's me that I'm experiencing.
So like right now, is this having this conversation with me? Is it like looking in a mirror?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a level of it that is like looking in a mirror.
Hmm.
It's
And
hard to describe because there's the
yeah,
personal level. I understand that on the personal level, you and I are separate. And I experience that level of separation, but I can also experience the level of being, so that we are actually the same being. It's one being looking at itself through different forms.
so fascinating. Let's give some people some context because I'm sure people are scratching their freaking heads right now, just like,
Yeah.
what are these guys talking about? So,
Yeah.
did you have a near death experience or was that more of a Kundalini awakening?
To me, it was both.
Yeah.
So I was in a dream, following a period of intense meditation. Um, and I had an experience that is very similar to a near death experience. And I hadn't really read anything about near death experiences at the time or about Kundalini. Um, but like going through it and then coming back from it and then reading up on the things, it was like, okay, I can see both in this. So I went through the classic kind of everything is black. There's a point of light in the distance. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter. I feel like I'm dying. I cross over some kind of a threshold and I enter into a different state of being. Very much like near-death experiences in the tunnel of light. And I come back from that into my body, and there is lightning like energy moving up and down my spine. And my whole consciousness had changed after that. And like I said, I didn't know anything really about either of those things beforehand. And then I think I stumbled across something about Kundalini. I don't exactly know how it happened, but I remember reading up about it and being like, wow, that sounds exactly like what happened to me. So I feel like it was both a near-death experience and a Kundalini awakening.
What were you like before that, right? I mean, like, what was your philosophy? Like, what was your state of consciousness before all of this?
I would say about a year before then, like I was, I can't remember the exact name for the words of it. It's like scientific materialism. Like, this is the body, like my consciousness is a quirk of the body. When I die, that's it, game over, lights out. And which was terrifying. Like
I mean, that's
really,
surprising, right? Like, what were you studying?
I studied medicine for 3 years from the age of 18 to 21. In the UK, that is a 5-year course. So I failed my exams in my third year, and I changed to psychology, and I studied psychology for 4 years. And I worked in psychological research, and I've got a couple of papers published in international
Really?
scientific journals through that. Yeah, and like looking back at that now, I can be like, okay, I feel like that kind of stuff happens so that it shows that I'm the kind of person who wouldn't believe in this stuff.
Proof.
No.
It's scientific proof that I'm a different person. What
Yeah.
were the papers on?
One was on the misreporting of science in the media, and the other was on the prevalence of domestic violence in pregnant women in London.
How have your views changed, or have they changed since your experience on those papers?
In some ways, they're very similar. Like,
Yeah.
it's a funny thing about awakening in that because it has these different levels to it, there are levels that can remain pretty much the same. Like I still view the scientific method as having loads of benefits to it, like, and it provides so much insight, but there are also some really big flaws in the way that the systems are organized, and there is a lot of, to be blunt, corruption within the system, where certain interests, let's look at big pharma for a second, like those, they're paying a huge amount of money to promote certain ideas. They're basically supporting scientists who will validate their beliefs, and it skews the research that's created. So I still believe that there's a misreporting of science,
Sure.
that hasn't changed, and I still feel that there's a high incidence of domestic violence.
Yeah, I'm
Pregnant
studying psychology right now. So like
women.
I'm going through that process. And since I have explored more of my spirituality and my own inward awareness, I would have to say that I've come up against just questioning really like how much of this stuff is actually truth, right? Like how much of this stuff isn't just, another level of programming or conditioning that we're just receiving, right? And who's influencing that? Who are they, right? Like how much of that was influenced? So I was just curious, like to, someone who's had that type of awakening, who's had a near death experience, like how they view science. Is it still like to your point of seeing it, I guess, from the personality perspective, and then also from the meta perspective of like, um, I don't know, with a much more knowing, if that makes sense, like seeing the truth, I guess, the seeing the smoke in the mirrors and kind of seeing it for what it is.
I feel like everything has its place. So we, each of us, are cells in the body of the cosmos, each and every one of us, and every single thing that happens within the cosmos. So it is all one being, every single thing that happens. And this one being is evolving and learning through interactions with itself. From the perspective of the cell, it could feel like something terrible was happening when you went to the gym and you worked out. When you were lifting weights, it could put like enormous strain on the cells in your muscle tissue. And those cells could really suffer. But from your perspective, as the whole of the body, you're working out. It's valuable. Something good is happening because you're aware of the larger context. So everything happening within science, within psychology, no matter how good nor how bad, is all the cosmos in movement. It's the cosmos working itself out. Some of this will be beneficial, some of it will be harmful, some of it will be expansive, some of it will be limited, but ultimately it's all the cosmos. So nothing is ever lost.
Wow. I feel like you should write a paper on that.
I don't even know where this is coming from.
You don't even know where this is coming from? Like you're just tapping into something? Like what?
Yeah, it's just coming through me. It's just coming through me.
Oh, there's so many questions I want to ask you. Like I want to get your perspective on your near death of like that experience, like going through that void, I guess, that darkness and seeing the light,
Yeah,
what that was like. But then
terrifying.
you say things to me that I just want to ask, like, where is this knowledge coming from? Like, how are you tapping into that?
It's your
And
knowledge.
it's my knowledge, but I don't remember it, man. You know, like there's
I
a
know.
block. There's a block there.
Yeah. And that's totally okay. You know, when there's so picture a tree, a beautiful tree, and it reaches the point where it creates flowers and it creates seeds. Everything is attached to the tree, and everything is a part of the tree. Everything, the whole knowledge of the tree is right there, and all the parts are right there with the tree. But then the tree wishes to expand. It wishes to be, it wishes to fulfill its nature and spread out its seeds to create new life. So it allows parts of itself, seeds, to be separated from itself temporarily. And these seeds are tiny and they're closed. And they don't have the full knowledge of the tree, yet they contain the full potential to become the tree. And even to expand upon what the tree was. So they're blown away on the wind and they land in the soil and it's dark and they're not in touch with the light. They're not in touch with the tree. They may feel lost and distant and separate, but that's just a passing phase. That's just nature. And eventually the conditions will be right where the seed will ripen and open, and it will start sending shoots up and roots down. And eventually those shoots will break through the surface of the soil and they will feel the light of the sun again. And they'll start to remember all the life that was around them when they were the tree. And eventually they'll grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And all this growth is really just a remembrance of what it was to be the tree. But by going through this process of separation and remembrance, it actually becomes more than it ever was before.
Wow, that's beautiful. Did that just come through too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember coming in, or do you remember your the what is it, the area between, was it life between life? Like, do you remember coming into
No,
this?
no. My earliest memory, I do have some early memories. Like I remember being a baby. I remember having my, well, in the UK we called nappy, but in the States you call it diaper. I remember having my diaper changed on the floor of my living room. Um, I remember what my consciousness was like at that time, almost identical to what it is now. Really, like the fundamental consciousness, the awareness that was there, the same. I remember being basically a baby, and my mum, I was wearing this little vest, and she was going to put me into the bath. And I tried to say to her, Mum, I'm wearing my vest, like it's going to get all wet. And I found it very funny. And then she put me in the water and I laughed because I was like, I told you it was going to get wet. But presumably that was all in my mind and I couldn't verbalize that. Those are my
Oh,
earliest memories. I don't remember the specific switch from lives.
wow. Do you remember past lives?
Some.
Some. Do you think they set you up to remember in this life?
There's some interesting things with past lives. So one of the biggest parts of awakening for me is awakening into our world. Like most people think that we are a separate human being and we exist on the world, and the world is this kind of inanimate thing that we live on. We are life and the world is not life. But the more that I awaken, the more that I realize that actually not only she is alive, our world is alive. And not only is she alive, but she's actually the source of our life. And that she can, her mind is one with our mind. And that within her, if you think how vast our world is compared to us as individuals, how enormous, like how magnificent a mountain looks. Yeah, how many mountains are there on the world? How much magnificence is the world? And then think, well, imagine if this world has a mind and a way of storing memories. And this world can remember every single thing that has happened to every single being that has been a part of it. Just like your body can remember what has happened to cells within your body. Now, each of us human beings is a seed of consciousness, a seed of our world's consciousness. And as I've been awakening, what's happened is the seed of my consciousness has opened and grown and reconnected with the world so that I know myself as the world. I am the world as a human being. Not only now in this form, but in all forms. So when we talk about past lives, what are we actually talking about? Is it my remembrance as a human being, as a soul in this body? Or is it me as the world remembering myself as I've been in other human forms? You know, what am I remembering when I remember a past life? You know, I think oftentimes when past lives are talked about, the assumption is from this individualistic and separate perspective. But if you are the entire cosmos, what are you remembering? You're just remembering yourself in different forms.
Well, when you left your body, or when you left the near death experience or the Kundalini awakening, right? Like,
Mm.
did you still feel like Jack, like that awareness?
Yeah, I still felt like me. Yeah.
I guess when people pass away from this, or when they die physically, I'm assuming we go into a different realm and we remember, I'm assuming again, what does that feel like? Is that, will I still feel like Trey? Will I still have that awareness, or will it be something totally different that I can't even think about? Here we go.
There's, to some degree, like I can only really like hypothesize about certain things, you know, because I am Jack now. So I'm, you know, I'm within my personality. I know that what is essential will not be lost. And that even if you did lose Trey, then you wouldn't lose yourself.
I feel like like I've never asked these crazy questions to anybody ever. Like I just feel like I feel like it may be because it's 2 a.m. there and like you're just totally on that line of like,
I'm plugged in.
yeah, you're plugged in. So I feel like I could probably throw some curveballs your way. Um, ah, talk about multidimensional entities, right? Um,
Yeah.
your experience with those. What was that like? Do you still experience them?
Every day.
Really?
Every day.
Do
I
you
love
see
them
them in your
so
physical
much.
reality?
No, I don't see them physically. I feel them, and I communicate with them telepathically. It began quite a long time ago now, maybe 7 years ago, shortly after the Kundalini Awakening. And it's evolved to some really close relationships. Like some of my closest relationships are with interdimensional beings. If I ever have a problem, which is daily, I can always open to them and talk to them every single day. And they will always give me advice. They will always put it in perspective. And the more time goes on, when I feel their energy, it's like an expansion of consciousness, and I know that they're there. I can feel them. But more and more as time goes on, when I feel their presence, it has the quality of looking into a mirror. And I know that I am them and they are me. That we are literally one being. I'm the human version of them. They are the God version of me. We're equals. And they're just a different form, divinity taking a different form. But we're all like leaves on the tree of God, you could say.
Have you ever experienced a multi-dimension like reality, like your awareness going there somewhere else?
Yes.
What was that like?
Pretty cool.
Was it similar to this?
Yes, but different. Everything's more vivid in those places.
Was there war, crime, things like that?
Experienced a lot of beauty, but I've met some pretty nasty beings too. They were me too. Some of them are quite scary, but they're just the personification of our own fears. And we have the power to shed their skin if we wish to, and to love them also.
Well, can you describe an experience like and what you did to like, there are experiences that I hear about like out of body experiences where people experience um fear, right? And so that fear outside in these astral planes will create a situation for them to experience that fear. So how did you necessarily deal with that, right? When you met these entities, these negative entities, like how did you combat that, right? Like, or did you have the awareness of like, I know what you are. I'm gonna love you. I mean, what did that look like?
I'm smiling a lot because I love this story. Um, so I was in a kind of an out of body state, but in sleep paralysis. So I was laying in my bed and just looking up, and I couldn't move my body. And it was like a horror movie. And I say all of this like I don't want to frighten anyone because there's a very good ending to this story. But it had a horror movie feel to it because there was just this horrible dread-like feeling that came over my body. And then you know when you're looking up and like the back of your bed is kind of behind your head.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw this big, like dark, big, like humanoid figure, like its head kind of moving down, like looking straight at me with these huge red eyes. And I felt a lot of terror. And I looked away at first. And then I was like, I don't know, can I swear? Or
Sure. Yeah.
I was like, there's no fucking way that I am going to allow my space to be violated by an energy like this. So I just turned my head back up and I stared it straight in the eyes. And I said, I banish you. I banish you. And I just kept saying it with all the will that was inside of me. And it just like went away, you know? And 3 times that night it came back. And every time I got stronger to the point where I could literally, I was lifting my arms, even though I was in sleep paralysis, because I was like moving my arms towards it. And I was just like, there's no way I am going to allow this to happen. And I woke up and I felt absolutely fantastic because I knew that this is my space and no foreign entity, nothing is going to fill me with fear.
Yeah. This is not the first time I've heard of the red eye beings, right? Like,
Oh.
what do you think? Like, what is that? Is it just our fear projected out into reality?
So I so I have these interactions with deities that are like absolutely wonderful, incredible beings. And I feel like they are an aspect of our psyche, like the psyche of the cosmos, and that's a part of us. And we aren't all love and light, you know. And we've got our shadows, we've got our blind spots, we've got all of that. And that too can project out into the cosmos and become something that we interact with as a seemingly external being. And that's what I believe that it is. And you know, we can take that theme and go, well, hang on, I think that's actually everything that's happening in my life. It is a kind of external projection of my internal state of consciousness. And it's like, yeah, that is what it is. It's just that when something is, you know, you interact with someone and they're pissing you off, like that seems more normal than some crazy being with big red eyes. But really, I think it's the same process happening.
Just crazy we project that as a being with red eyes. That scares the crap out of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to your point, we don't experience that in our reality, except when we're behaving in certain ways, right, towards people. We don't even see it then. It's only when we're in these altered states of consciousness where we see that is within us, that is projected out in reality, that scares the shit out of us. It's just so
And
fascinating to me.
I think they are like external beings too, like in the same way as like you are an external being to me right now. But you're also a projection of an aspect of myself, and I am a projection of an aspect of yourself, and we're interacting. But these beings, I do think they have an external existence,
Hmm.
but their external existence exists within the universe that we actually are.
Do you think it's like, obviously, there's always contrast for growth? Do you think that's what they are? It's like they're our growth. I mean, everything can't be love and light, right? Like everything, there has to be some type of contrast for growth.
So again, what I come back to is levels. So there is a level where there is contrast and evolution and growth, and they are serving their purpose in that, and we are serving our purpose in that. But there is also a level beyond growth. So the reason I say this is because we can start putting value judgments on these things. And we can say that their value is because they provide growth. They exist in order to provide me growth. But a deeper level of love in a way, and peace and acceptance, is to say actually they don't even need a reason to exist. And this can be a really difficult one to accept. And sometimes I've shared about this on social media, and it's made people quite agitated and upset, because they'll start talking about wars in the world and terrible things that have happened, and I'll be saying everything has a right to exist. You know, it doesn't need a reason. Like, there is no good or bad. It's a difficult place to step into, but the more we are actually able to step into that, the more everything finds its harmony naturally. I might need to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, I think Yogananda said, right, like in his book, when he was getting upset about the wars that he experienced in his generation, like he was having a meditation, and through that meditation, he received guidance that, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially he received guidance that, you know, life is or here is like a movie, like for them, right? Like back then they had movies, movie theaters playing war dramas and things of that nature to support the war. And he basically received the message, you know, see it for what it is. It's a movie. Look away from the movie. Look away from the screen. Look back towards the projection, the light, and see where it's coming from. And I think that's kind of what you're saying here, is where like war and things of that nature, right? You're saying there's no good or bad. It's just playing out, right? But my curiosity hits a little bit, and wanting to ask you, like, kind of hitting on Yogananda, this is a drama. Like, is this an illusion? And is that why you can say that?
Like, I almost never refer to the things happening in our life as an illusion. And like, I appreciate the perspective, but the reason I move away from it is because I've gone through my own phases, and I've met a lot of people who have used that kind of insight to be very heartless and to not care. And the place that I'm coming from is not a place that does not care. Like, I've been seeing like the children pulled out of the rubble in Gaza, and it is difficult to take. You know, that's heartbreaking, and I care about that. But it's so difficult to articulate this. Like, it's like on one level I can care immensely, and I could even take action to try and prevent something, and I could be really dedicated to that and really passionate about it, while simultaneously holding an understanding that every single thing that exists is meant to be, and that there's there doesn't have to be a conflict between those two. And that actually, if we are in a deep ground of peace and acceptance about everything that is arising in life, we are in that ground and we accept it fully. That acceptance, it changes it's like alchemical. It changes our consciousness, opens us to spirit. And then we may choose to passionately act against something, but it's coming from a ground of acceptance and really a deep love of everything that is. A a deep understanding of the necessity of suffering, that suffering isn't bad, that it's our mind in separation that judges things to be good and bad. But that's, the illusion. That's the trick. And if we're able to move outside of that, we actually enter into a blissful, deeply blissful state of peace. And we can act from that.
So you talk about suffering from a very subjective point of view. When you had this experience, near-death experience, Kundalini Awakening, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, right? Like you experienced your own suffering in a way that 2 years you didn't work, right? Like you didn't go out into the social world, right? Like the way that I heard you describe, like there was some type of integration with that experience into this reality that was painful for you.
Yeah.
Why was it so painful? Was it because of your conditioning and beliefs? And or maybe was it like the ego grasping? Like what was that?
So it's like there's a weight of the past. I wasn't aware of many things that had happened to me in my life. I hadn't come to terms with them and found resolution with them, but they were within my body and my mind, in the darkness of my own consciousness, weighing me down. So the Kundalini was like a dimmer switch when you just suddenly turn it up. So suddenly there was all this light shining on all of these things that I had been trying to hide from inside of my psyche, like childhood trauma, abuse, all of this stuff. And not only mine, but also intergenerationally, culturally. And that started to rapidly surface. So it took a lot to work through that. And I still work through that stuff. I'm still working through things. I still have things that make me feel a lot of suffering, struggles that I go through. It's just that I can move through them more quickly, and I have more consciousness now. Like I can see what's happening quicker and do something about it quicker.
Sure.
I don't want to give the impression that I'm somehow free of all suffering or that I'm some kind of perfect human being, because I'm absolutely not. And anyone who knows me would be able to say that.
Well, how have you changed, right? Like how has the Jack from the past differ from the well, obviously, like Trey from the past is different than the Trey now, but like we're talking about someone who's experienced a spiritual awakening. Like when people look at you who have known you your entire life, they see Jack before this and Jack after. Like, how have you changed? How would they say you changed?
I mean, first of all, like I've checked in with a few people and they've been like, yeah, I've seen a massive change, massive change in you. I think calmer, more confident, more myself, less afraid to be myself. More patient, more loving, more aware. Like all of those things, I think.
More piercings.
More myself.
That's right. No fear. Well, maybe there's
Exactly.
fear,
When
right?
I was a
Maybe
teenager, I always wanted to get piercings, but I was too afraid. So these piercings are actually an expression of my awakening.
the socialization of the roles that we play in society. And now you're free of those.
More that I'm free to be who I always wanted to be. I'm a Scorpio. It's my birthday next week. I've always, from a young age, I've been into heavy metal. music. I like passion and darkness and intensity. And I would always see these people who were really expressing that with piercings and tattoos and the way that they dressed, but I felt too insecure to express myself in that way. So I've been doing that recently, overcoming fears, expressing myself, being the person that I always wanted to be.
Love that, man. I love that. Like that hits. That hits hard. Do you still experience your reality? Like you were talking in one interview about experiencing like energies, like gold energies and things like that.
Yeah, I've been seeing that this entire interview.
Have you?
Big time.
Is it is it a good sign?
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
That's the energy of spirit. I see that as.
that's awesome. Does it get more like, is it intense in certain moments? Like when you're like, let's say, um, out in the street, a public street, like, do you see the same things
I see it all the time, but it does intensify more strongly at certain times. Um,
when you're
like
talking about these subjects?
when I'm talking about these subjects, for sure. When it like in this instance of us speaking, because this is a public conversation, spirit knows that, you know, and every time I do something like this, spirit comes in. I'm not trying to make it come in, it just does, because it knows it wants to make the most use of this opportunity as it can. You know, it is all of us, and it wants us all to awaken to it. So it wants to shine brightly in this conversation so that more of us can see it.
Well, let's have spirit come in. Like what does spirit want to say right now?
Spirit's been saying most of the I mean, like okay, so what I'm experiencing in my body is a very strong flow of energy, very strong flow of spiritual energy that I feel is a kind of gravity or magnetism moving through my body and my nervous system. And I see that as like a kind of shining light in everything that I'm looking at. Spirit teaches most strongly without words. Spirit teaches through its own illumination. So you were saying, what does spirit want to say? Well, that was all spirit saying that, you know. Sometimes it's difficult for me to even know the difference between my personality and spirit speaking.
Sure.
Um,
Well, I have some channelers that come on the show too, right? And they know when they're channeling a certain entity that you speak about. And I'm wondering if, like, do you speak to like angels and guides and things of that realm, like Archangel
yeah,
Michael or some of the Saint Germain, or we give them labels, right? But do you have conversations with them?
yeah. So there are three goddesses that I'm very closely connected to.
I bet you, yeah, I would say goddesses for you. Three
Yeah.
goddesses. Which ones?
So the Morrigan, Celtic Deity of Death, Sex, and Magic. We have a very, very close relationship. She has said things to me at times that I'm kind of the human version of her, or one of the human versions of her, not like me specifically, but I'm we're part of the same thing. Like we're very, very closely connected, and that's why I've changed my name, my surname, to Morrigan. That's not my legal name or my birth name, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's my name. She is very, very close to me. I channel her regularly. She speaks to me regularly, but I also channel her when I work with clients and when I'm in my the group that I run. So that will be me, kind of my personality stepping back and her energy stepping forward. So she's one. Another is Hathor of Egypt. Another is Hela of Scandinavia. Those are the three goddesses that I work with. But then there are also dragons, 10 dragons. It was only about a year ago that the dragons really connected with me. And, you know, I was saying that I had this background in medicine, psychology, and I was atheist. You know, I can still remember that's still a part of me. So I hear myself saying these things and I'm like, how did all of this happen?
You know, it's funny you say this, right? Whenever I look up, and maybe some people can resonate with this too, maybe not. I don't know. I have a dragon on my arm, like a tattoo. Maybe I subconsciously got it. I don't know. But when I look up in the sky, sometimes there's cloud formations, and it always looks like a dragon to me. Is that like, are we that close to a realm of dragons? Like, I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I heard someone say that one time, and I was like, kind of taken back a little bit. I was like, maybe that's true because like obviously, you're a psych guy. Like I could be interpreted as that. I'm projecting that as a dragon, but like I swear to you, man, every cloud formation to me looks like a dragon head.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's a lot to say with that. When I was a kid, one of my favorite movies was called what was it called? It was about dragons, basically. And I was obsessed with it. I'd watch it over and over and over again. And it was actually about a scientist who like kind of falls into this fantasy world and meets dragons and forms relationships with them. And it's him sort of like his scientific part of him versus this kind of magical part of himself. I was obsessed with that movie.
Hmm.
Why was I obsessed with that movie? Why wasn't I obsessed with a different movie? It's seeing the world as separate. You know, I am a separate being looking at a world that is outside of me. It can create all these kind of questions and confusion. But if you are the cosmos, and the cosmos includes dragons that are a part of you, and you as a human being are connected to them and meant to connect to them, then the foundations for that connection will be laid out in your lifetime by nature. So your natural inclination toward things can be something that was created within you to enable that reconnection to take place.
Like a breadcrumb.
Exactly.
Yeah. My movie back in the day, was it Never Ending Story or something like that?
I love that movie.
Yeah, that was
Falco.
awesome. Yes. That played with that just took me away with my imagination growing up as a young boy. Like I was all in on that movie.
Mm-hmm. I loved it too.
Mm. So when you connect with dragons, right, are they giving you messages too?
Yeah. So they only came in last year, but they've given some very strong, very clear messages. Really, they've shown me a huge amount about what the cosmos is, what I am in relation to the cosmos, what human beings are in relation to the cosmos, and what they are in relation to the cosmos. So to put this in a useful framework, like they actually said to me once, like they are like blood vessels through which Kundalini moves. They said that Kundalini is the lifeblood of the cosmos, and that dragons are arteries and veins through which that blood flows.
Hmm.
they said that the cosmos is a single living being, and it moves through seasons, through different parts of itself. So there are some parts of the cosmos right now that are in a kind of spiritual summer, and there are other parts that are in spiritual winter. The summer parts are very open to the whole, very connected. The winter parts are very closed and withdrawn, isolated. So we are in the winter part of the cosmos. But winter doesn't last forever. There is an inevitable coming of spring. And what they have said to me is they have returned to create that spring, the spring of human consciousness, so that human consciousness will open and return to the cosmos. We will remember the cosmos, and the cosmos will remember us. And they call this the Great Return.
So they're helping us awaken, right? By carrying that Kundalini energy.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, it gets complicated because it's really our energy, it's, we are the cosmos. So they're kind of delivering our own energy back to us. And
Sure.
as that returns to us, we remember. And that's what's been happening to me over the last 10 years. The whole process, it hasn't been like a gathering of new knowledge. It's been a remembering of what was always there.
How do you validate that remembering? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, a little bit of scientist just came out of me right there, and I'm sorry, but it's like, so you had this remembering, and you're talking, you're having conversations or moments with dragons and goddesses. Like, how do you fact check that just for yourself?
I mean, a lot of it is just like when you know, like when you really know something, like when you forgot where your keys were and then you're looking all over the place, and then you just know that's where you put them, and then you go over there and there they are. It's that kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, right, okay, I am the cosmos. I feel it. I know it. I know it.
Well, let me ask you this. So the Kundalini energy, does it reside? I mean, I get what you're saying, but like I always hear how it travels up the spine, right? So is there an area that it resides sleeping dormant until we awaken it?
I mean, I've read since it happened to me that it rests at the base of the spine, like kind of in the sacral area. And I can't remember how long it was, like after that initial awakening, maybe a few days afterwards. I remember I was in bed and I wondered if I could like make it happen again, like using my mind. And I imagined like this spiraling thing at the base of my like at my sacrum, the back of my sacrum. And as I was imagining it, I could start feeling it, and then it like came up my spine again. So I think what those yogis were writing about was accurate, like that it's at
Have
the
you had
base of the spine.
conversations with yogis?
Um, no, not not human ones face to face. A couple in astral projections and things like that.
Who would we recognize if you were to state a name? Yogananda, maybe? And
In the projections,
yeah, astral world.
it's hard to tell. So the main one was the one that initiated that Kundalini Awakening, who may have been Ramana Maharshi. I'm not sure. The person who said the left hand and the right hand, the way that he was dressed, like he was like naked except for like a little loincloth. It could have been him. There was another one. It's going to be difficult for me to finish this story because I was so moved just by seeing him um, that it's difficult to even talk about the story. but in the story, like I was in a dream. I was with somebody else, and we were in like a basement, like this creepy basement, and it was all very fearful. And we were both chanting the name of I find it difficult to pronounce his name. It's like Rabindranath Tagore. He's a famous poet. I think he was nominated for the Nobel Prize for Literature, or maybe won it. And he'd written some incredible poetry, and I'd read a few of his poems, and I was like, this guy is really deeply tuned in. So me and this other person just kept saying his name over and over and over again. And then I remember turning around, and one of the walls of this creepy cellar had disappeared. And you could see through beyond. And it was these hyper vivid greens and purples, just like in space, with all these like strange like geometric structures. And stood in front of that doorway was another Indian man in a loincloth. I don't know if it was Rabindranath Tagore or not, but I was definitely saying his name a lot of times. And I just felt completely overwhelmed with love, like his love for me. And like I just ran over to him and put my arms around him.
You feel that right
And
now?
a little, I'm just more, it's more just like remembering that like so much love is possible. Like in this world that we're in with so much separation and pain. In some ways, I wish I could just be there all the time, but I know that I'm not supposed to be.
Have you ever felt this type of love before your experience?
Maybe
Hmm.
with maybe a little with my spiritual teacher, Fran.
Wow. Can you feel the universe, like the cosmos, like in every moment?
Not in every moment. Like I have my times where I just feel sad for no particular reason, or sad because I'm missing someone that I care about, or I may sometimes I to be honest, I'm missing my teacher Fran right now, but I can still feel the cosmos now.
Your teacher was, who was that?
Fran Bennett, she was a Christian mystic. She was a Christian monk in the Trappist tradition for over 20 years. She also ordained with some Buddhist teachers, and she had very profound awakenings when she was in the monasteries, and one of them was very, very powerful, and she decided to leave the monastery, which was a huge decision. Um, she's not that well known, but she was very close to Adyashanti, who American spiritual teacher, formerly of the Zen tradition. Um, and they have videos together, like you can watch them on YouTube where they were giving talks together and things. She was just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Hmm. Do you think everybody should have a teacher?
No,
No.
I think we were all unique, and that our awakening is our own. Our life path is our own. For some of us, that will be right. For some of us, it won't.
What
You
about
know,
those that are really trying hard right now? Is that what's getting in their way?
maybe, maybe it's. I feel that spirituality is often presented as one thing, or like there's one path, but that is less and less how I see things. Like each of us have our own path, our own unique life that we are meant to live. And the most spiritual that you can be is by living your own authentic life, not by following somebody else's ideas of what you should be or what spirituality should be to you. Only you can be the full expression of what the universe wants you to be.
Hmm. Hmm. You said earlier, and I hope it's cool. I know it's late there. I'm just so fascinated with this conversation. Are you good? You're good to go a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm in like
You're in the zone, man.
I'm in so much bliss.
um, your clients, you said you channel for them. Who was that you
Yeah.
channeled again? Which goddess?
So everything that I mentioned, so the Morgana, Hathor, Hela, and all 10 of the different dragons, I channel for different people at different
What does the
times.
channeling look like? Do you just like when you close your eyes and speak, is that essentially what it looks like?
So what I'll usually say to people is like, okay, I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to go into my trance. I'll say these words that aren't in any normal language that I use to help create the connection. It'll take a couple of minutes, and then we'll form the connection. The being that will most want to work with you will come forward. They'll say their name 3 times, and then they are at the front and I'm at the back. I'm still here, but they're the ones who are leading the show. And yeah, that's like how that goes.
Can I ask you about what your thoughts are on ETs?
So I don't have like an extensive direct connection. I've had some experiences. Um, the way that I see it, this entire universe is one being. There are trillions of planets in this universe. Each of those planets is alive, and each of those planets is going to be expressing some kind of intensification of their consciousness, just like we are an intensification of the consciousness of this planet. I think it would be insane to think that there aren't ETs. And given that the way that the cosmos interacts with itself, I think it is extremely likely that they will be uh, positively and negatively influencing human consciousness.
Sure. You said earlier, like you've visited different dimensions, right? Have you ever noticed someone here that was from a different dimension that you kind of picked up on?
Like somebody here who is from a different
Yeah,
dimension.
like so, like when you move your awareness, or have you ever physically gone to a different dimension, like yourself, and visited there? And then while you're here in this reality, like have you ever experienced, like, say you're having a conversation with someone out in public, and or you see something or feel something, because you experience reality different than I do, right? So because of that, like have you ever picked up on maybe energies or just a knowing that like someone may be in your vicinity that is from like visiting from a different dimension
Like as a human.
as a human?
I don't think so, but I'm just like, I'm going to take a moment just to feel into that and see. No, not in the way that you've described that, if I understand it correctly. Not like as a human being, kind of incarnate as a human being.
But you experience people from different dimensions. Well, I guess I say people, but beings from different dimensions energetically.
Yeah, like I experience deities.
Yeah.
Um, yes.
So when you're all right, so tell me, you have to tell me, like, what is Jack's typical day? Like, what does that look like? Like, you get up, what are you doing? Uh, you're walking down the street. Let's say you have a thought, like maybe you're having a little bit of a negative day. Like, what are the goddesses saying to you? Like, what does that look like?
Sure. No, that's a good question. Like, To be honest, I'll give you the completely honest answer. I'll usually wake up in the morning, I'll check my phone, I'll go on my social media.
Who does it?
First thing that I do in the morning, you know, sometimes I beat myself up for it. Like, you shouldn't be doing this, Jack, but I am. So there we go. And sometimes sometimes I'll meditate in the morning. Like I'm in a phase of listening to lots of Eckhart Tolle videos. Like I have criticisms of Eckhart Tolle. I'm not one of these people who thinks that he's absolutely perfect, but I do really enjoy listening to some of his he like kind of takes me into a good place to start my day. So I'll listen to some of those. Um I'll do my German. I'm living in Berlin at the moment, so I'll learn some German. I lay in bed for a long time in the mornings, like
Yeah.
for a good while. And then I may like get some low feeling, you know. Sometimes I worry about things. Um, money and romance are my biggest worries.
Really?
Those are the things that are most likely to cause me stress. And if I'm not very aware, like maybe I had a heavy night's sleep or something, like I mean difficult dreams or something, and I don't have much energy, I might get sucked into that, you know, and that might cloud up my day, and I might need to get out of my apartment and go for a bike ride or something just to like clear my head. Other days it will be like bliss, like this kind of opening into bliss. Like everything feels absolutely wonderful and perfect. Um, and I often oscillate between those two. Like like one of my favorite things to do is I'll go to a local cafe and I'll just sit there for hours and I just feel the energy of the earth beneath me and I'm just connected to that. And I'm looking at all these people around me and I'm listening to music and my heart will just like expand with like so much love and I'll have tears in my eyes. That's often how I spend my days.
So why romance? Like, why is that depressing you? Do you find it hard to connect with females because of this experience?
It's more my wounding. So I had a very difficult relationship with my mother and my sister. And there's intergenerational wounds connected to that. So there's this deep pain um, in the loss of intimacy between myself, which can create a neediness in me for the fulfillment of that love. Um, but it's something that I'm growing more and more aware of. And as a result, I'm having good relationships. But, it's one of my most difficult places.
What do women say when they hear you talk about goddesses and dragons? Just out of curiosity.
Depends which ones I'm talking to. Berlin's a pretty open-minded
I
city.
forgot about that. Yeah, I should have used that in context. Yeah.
Here, when I'm saying it to women, they're intrigued, I would say, interested.
That's cool. I mean, that's awesome, right? Like, I don't think you can do that on the East Coast in the United States. I don't know if I could talk about dragons to my wife and she not run out of the room. Um,
Mhm.
what about money, right? Like, what are you have wounds around money too?
Yeah, definitely. Like my mom has a major scarcity mindset, and um, my granddad was a prisoner of war for 3 years in the Second World War, and I wonder how much that might have kind of transferred down the generations. My mum was born just after he returned from that time as a prisoner of war. when there was still rationing happening. So like this scarcity energy, I think, was instilled into her, and then she instilled it into me. That's my theory. So like this fear of loss, this fear of not having enough, that terrible things will happen and it's all going to snowball and it's all going to be terrible and all that kind of stuff. My consciousness of it has risen enormously recently, and I don't actually have any financial worries. In fact, financially, things are going fantastically. But if things slow down a little, it can exacerbate those old wounds. And then I have to be like, oh, shit. Okay, here we go again. Keep doing it. Like, keep bringing the consciousness to it. Okay, step out of it. You don't need to go into that. Like, kind of rewriting those old patterns. It's
Sure.
breaking into generational curses, you know.
Was that a part of the manifestation like process of like you're obviously doing an action to generate money, but is it because of the self-worth and this trauma that's associated with that that is restricting that money flowing to you?
Yeah, I think there's like an element of I don't deserve this. And also, I've noticed in my mum, and I think it's also been true of me, hopefully less so now, but that being poor is a way of getting attention. Like she would highlight like how little she has, you know, a kind of like a victim story, like, oh, I have so little. And it's like, I'm a good person because I have so little. I also wonder, like, one of the past lifetimes that I have a memory of is me as a monastic in Tibet. And I wonder how much there's this kind of monasticism energy coming in, you know, where it's like not having money makes me a better person.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I can definitely feel there's definitely wounds for me around that. Um, just growing up, my grandfather was a part of the depression, so it was like he had little. Um, it's always you have to work hard for what you have. You have to do this. You have, they had separate bank accounts. They slept in separate rooms. I mean, it was just like everything was separate. So like I can definitely feel the wounds like of worthiness in me.
Mm.
So when it comes to like manifestation, there's some areas that I'm really good at creating, and then there's some that I think money is a commonality amongst people as far as like generating and manifesting money, just because of all the wounds, especially on the East Coast with the Great Depression and I don't know. I don't know what I can't put my finger on it, but I have this knowing inside of me that you have to have faith that you'll be provided for, and the more wounds and trauma that you have that you're holding on to subconsciously just restricts that from flowing to you. Like for instance, like I can generate signs like in my reality. Like I can pick up on stuff. Like I can pick up on the number 44, 99, things like that, 77, like just like that, because there's no resistance to that. Like I can see it everywhere in my reality. But $100,000, like there's so much that is there that is restricting that to coming to me, right? But that's just showing me, right? Like that there is stuff that I still need to work on subconsciously, trauma growing up that is still there that I'm not looking at.
Yeah.
And to go into that darkness, that fear, the red eyes, right? And
Yeah.
search, if any of that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. Like we hold it in the shadows of our unconsciousness. And it's when we start facing those shadows, and the shadows are always this stuff that we feel ashamed of and it shouldn't be there, you know? So for me, it's like, there's a part of me that enjoys being poor. There's a part of me that likes the attention I receive from being poor. You know, that, you know, I don't in the kind of in my consciousness, I don't want that to be there. Like I don't think that that's a particularly cool part of myself, but I have to find it and embrace it. Like I have to know the truth of myself, because whether it's conscious or not, if it's there, it will create your reality. And that's what I see shadow work as. It's about going into all of those places and going, okay, who am I really? Really? I know I'm not going to want to see this, but I have to. So I'm going to do it.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's some tough stuff. What's it, and this is totally left field just because it just popped up in my mind, but like, what's the difference between like astral projection and then like, is like astral projection and then like out of body experiences? Are they the same thing?
I think they're the same thing. I use those words interchangeably.
Hmm. Did you always have those?
No, no, I don't know, maybe a few times when I was a kid or something, and I didn't really know that's what was happening. Um, but they only really started in a conscious way after the Kundalini Awakening.
Well,
Um, and they were very different. It was like I am literally being taken to another world. And
what
it's
is it like when you're,
awesome.
is that where you met the deities?
No, so I met they may have been there, but I didn't, if they were, I didn't see them. I went to this other realm of existence. Um, I don't know exactly what it was like because I was seeing it through the lens of my mind, like in a way that would make sense to me. So it just seemed like a kind of almost like a little town out of Lord of the Rings or something, with like all these little creatures running around. Like that's how my mind made sense of it. But everything was like super vivid, like more vivid than me and you right now, like hyper real.
Hmm. Hmm. Have you ever connected, reconnected with that, with the cosmos, with the source?
It's hard to know exactly what you mean by that.
Well, like some people, when they've had a death experience, they have this, or even like psychedelics. They talk about losing the ego, the self, and like being sucked into God and like feeling everything and
Um,
having that blissed out, like that, this crazy feeling that they can't ever describe. It's ineffable.
I think I remember me and a friend we were both students of Fran's. Um, we were talking to Fran about things like that, and my friend was like, why am I not having these like very specific kind of intense spiritual awakening things? And Fran was like, well, I'm kind of integrated in these different levels, so that's what I'm transmitting to you. And so for me, some parts of my awakening, like I can resonate with that, like as an idea, or like there's some parts of my experience that I feel that. But for me, it's all like everything's oriented into the integration into my humanity. So I've had less of these kind of I'm dissolving into absolute nothingness kinds of experiences, and more like, okay, well, right here, right now, in conversation to you, I can feel myself expanded into the universe. I can feel the flows of the universe. Like, um, uh, I don't know if that answers the question.
I guess it's the same thing, right? Like if you're feeling that, flowing with it, right? But how do you experience other people though? Like this conversation with me, how do you experience this?
And so there's different levels. One level is like, well, I mean, I'm in quite a kind of blissed out, surreal kind of state. That's one side of it. But like, so there's the side where it's like, I know that you are our living world. Like you are the same consciousness that I am, just expressing itself into a different form. Like, so we are mirrors looking at ourselves. there's that. But then there's the very ordinary human level, you know, all the things that you're probably having toward me, like all the normal social interaction, human stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to like make a point of this. Like, I'm human and I'm ordinary. In many ways, I'm more ordinary, at least in my experience, than I used to be. Um,
That's the fascination behind it, because like your experience is totally different than mine. So it's like we get so curious. I do anyway, right? And people that have these peak experiences to how their reality is developed or processed differently than what it was before. Because I experience it this way. There's no way of knowing that you experience it the same way, or you know what I mean? Like, do you see blue the same way that I see blue, or
yeah,
black the same way that I see black? You know, like you talk about these golden energy vibes that you see, and
yeah.
it's so fascinating because it's like, oh wow, I wonder if they're there for me. I just, I wonder if it's just cleaning the lens, if that makes sense.
And I, th- th- mm, there's always like a risk of comparison.
Yeah.
Like, I was in a relationship with this woman who, she didn't see this golden light shining out of people, and I did, but she would get these downloads of information in the middle of the night that would wake her up, and then she would write down, just waves of like insight would come to her, and she would create this beautiful poetry, just really beautiful poetry, and it was just coming like it was straight out of source, you know. And I would try, like sometimes she would kind of go into this place of like, oh, you're kind of doing it right, like you're awakening right, and I'm not. And I'd be like, well, no, like you're doing things that I can't do, that I don't know about. Like we're just all unique.
Sure. Since you're a psych guy, where is the mind? Right. I've heard so many different theories and thoughts about that. I've heard the mind is outside of the body. It's just like the body's housed within the mind. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, so whatever I say, take it with a pinch of salt. That's like my opinion.
That's always good.
And it's the I've more and more moving in the direction that there is just a single cosmic mind, and that my mind as an individual is like a leaf on a branch of that mind. So the mind is just kind of everything that arises is arising inside of the mind, inside of the psyche. Um, but that psyche is the psyche of the cosmos. But that is our psyche.
Oh man, Jack, this has been awesome, dude. Like I just love talking to you. How are you holding up? You good? You say you're blissed out. Are you blissed out from the conversation or just because it's 3 a.m.
Both.
there?
Mostly the conversation.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm feeling a huge amount of spiritual energy moving through, and feeling very, very happy, glad to be talking to you and sharing these insights. It's been quite a wild ride these 10 years. A lot of information downloading into me, and nearly every day, deities or some kind of being deepening that knowledge into me, or the earth herself just giving that knowledge back to me. And it can be difficult to articulate it all. But what I try to do is just really let it shine out of me, because it's that resonance that people will feel. And it's that resonance that's most likely to awaken them so that they can have their own voyages into this knowledge. And it doesn't have to be me telling someone what reality is. They can know it for themselves.
Experiential knowledge.
Yeah.
You need to come up with like a calendar of like daily excerpts, Jack's daily dose of knowledge. What was today's learning? What did you learn today, Jack?
What did I learn today? What did I learn today? It's cheesy. It's cheesy because it's a bit of a spiritual cliche. But the present moment is the best moment you'll ever have. This one. I was reminding myself of that today. I was feeling a bit low, and then that insight came to me, and it completely cleared up all the low feeling that I was having. Like, oh yeah, this is the best moment I'm ever gonna have.
So for someone listening to this or watching this right now, and you're sharing this moment with them, and maybe they need to hear something right now, like what would you say to them?
So if you're in a difficult place right now, remember that this won't last forever. And when you're in that difficult place, it can feel like it will last forever. That's what it'll tell you. But see if you can remember a time when this wasn't the case. A time when you actually did feel good. Maybe today, maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago, a month ago. I guarantee you, you'll be able to find a time when you did feel good. So see if you can tune into that and connect with it. Because the suffering that you're going through right now isn't only your suffering, it's the suffering of all your ancestors. And it's the suffering of the entire earth and the entire cosmos. And you are not alone. You are not alone in that suffering. The entire cosmos suffers with you and stands alongside you. And your suffering is not in vain, because it is a part of the evolution of everything that exists.
We're not alone. Does the cosmos hear our cry?
Yes. Yes.
Does it answer that cry?
Yes. Wait and see.
Jack, how can people reach out to you? How can they find you?
So there's my website. It's myrisingrose.com. The dragons that I work with are called the Dragons of the Rising Rose. That's where that name comes from. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I just set up a TikTok as well. I'm trying to get more active on.
Look at you, Mr. Social Media.
I'm trying.
Brother, this has been an amazing experience. I'm just so happy and so grateful that I was able to experience this moment with you.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much, Trey. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You've asked some fantastic questions that have taken me into a really wonderful altered state of consciousness, which I'm going to enjoy before I sleep tonight.